guys, welcome to my video. My name is Naomi. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing top 10 questions that I'm probably going to ask you during your interview or your application process when you're applying for a bachelor's program or when you're applying for a master's program. These are questions that I've seen and experienced a lot of times while I was doing an interviews for both my bachelor's and my master's program. So I am definitely sure they're going to be asking you these questions. For schools that do not have interview process, they're probably going to ask you these questions in your application process or during your application process. And if you have an interview, baby boy, baby girl, you know you're definitely gonna find these questions. So let me help you, let me give you some guidelines on how you can ace this interview or ace this type of questions so that you can get enrolled. Stay tuned. So, are you ready? Should we begin? So I'm gonna keep on looking at my notes here that I've made because I've jotted down the questions so that I don't forget them. So the number one question you're not most probably, but I'm 100% sure you're gonna meet this question is, number one, tell us about yourself. I know when you get into an interview, you're super nervous. They ask you to tell yourself and all of a sudden you don't know who you are. It happens. It even happened to me. I'm not gonna lie. It's very scary. All of a sudden you don't know who you are. And I know there are a lot of videos on YouTube that will tell you how to answer this question, what to say, how to go about it, why they're asking you that stuff, why they're doing this and that. But you know what? Let me just cut the chase. For me, I think what personally works with this question is you start off with a personal detail about yourself and then merge it with the reason why you're in that interview. Start off with a personal detail about yourself. I'm so and so, I grew up this and this, my hobbies are this and this, my passion is this and this, and then, it leads to what you're applying for. Let me make it simple. Let me use an example. For example, let's say you're applying for an engineering course. You get to the interview or the application process and they say, tell us about yourself. Let me pretend to be George. I'm a boy. Let me go. So, hello. Thank you for having me in this interview. My name is George. I come from Texas. I grew up in a small town of this and this. I grew up in a ranch. My parents were farmers. My grandparents were farmers. So I'm from a long line of farmers. And I'm a person who's very inquisitive. I like finding out how things work. I'm always curious about why things function and how they function. And growing up as a small boy in my farm, I used to go with my my father a lot, and then we'd be fixing the poles, mending the machines, and I was super interested in all those things. I guess that's why I even identify with it right now, because it's become part of who I am. I'm very inquisitive in nature. I like fixing things. I like working with things. I like inventing things. I guess that's why I ended up wanting to major in an mechanical engineering course. So you see, you made a personal connection. You gave them a backstory about who you are and where you're going and what defines you in life. Something like that. And then let's say you're applying for psychology. Let me use my example. So tell us about yourself. My name is Naomi. I come from Francistown. I grew up with my mother. I consider myself to be a very loving and caring person. I easily connect with people. Whenever I'm in a social crowd, I just instantly connect with people, and that's one character I identify myself with. Growing up, I grew up with my mother. My mother is a community healthcare nurse, so I used to travel with her when she performed community-based work. And during that period of time, I just kind of developed this love of working with people and helping people. I think that's why I identify with it, because I've been doing it for such a long time that it's become part of who I am. Something like that. That is just an example of tell me about yourself. I hope you get it. Give a personal detail about you and then make sure that you link that. This goes the same for a job interview or for a scholarship interview. Even for a school interview, it's the same. Give a personal detail about yourself and then link it to who you are and where you want to be. And it goes along with why you're applying for that course or why you're there asking for that scholarship or that admission into the program that you want. I hope that made sense. So moving on to question number 2. Question number 2 is, why did you choose that program? Like I mentioned in the first question, when you make a connection of your past with, well, why you want to study that or where you're going, it becomes very easy for you to answer this question. Why did you apply for this program? When you're taking maybe, let's say, social work, like I mentioned, my mother being a community healthcare work, it just developed my life for that. Even though I didn't know social work was exactly what I wanted to do, I just knew I wanted something that had to do with helping people. By the way, I'm giving an example that had to do with helping people. So I considered psychology, I considered counseling and all that, but during my search of what I really wanted to do, I think social work is what I connect with more, what I connect with the most, because of 1, 2, 3. And this is why I want to do this program. This is why I felt called for this program. And you would have answered your you would have answered your question, basically. I hope that made sense. So why did you choose this program? Make sure that it's something. Be honest. The best thing you can do for yourself is to be honest. Be honest why you want to be a psychologist. Why do you really want to be a mechanic? Because it will be unique and different from each and everybody else. So make sure you stand out. And then the third question would be, why do you want to study in the school? Why did you choose the school? Why did you choose to apply to the school? And this one, I would advise you that you research about the school. Find out their mission statement, find out their vision. If you are into an engineering course, go to the School of Engineering, research lectures, research current research that the school is engaged in. That will be like the most common field that your school that you're applying to is associated with. Or even if you're in the Department of Mathematics, find 3 or 2 lectures, no, I'd say 3 to 4 lectures that inspire you. Or you just have to name them down and then the fields that they specialize in. And then when they ask you why you chose your school, make sure that you mention those professors. Don't mention just one person, because what if the person who's interviewing you doesn't vibe with that person? So make sure you mention 2 or 3 people to show that it's not just one person who's bringing you into the school, but it's just the whole team that intrigues you. You can even talk about their culture. You can even talk about, just go into the school website and find out as much as you can and mention all those things that stand out. Make sure you mention academic wise. You can talk of the lectures, the research, the facilities, and then you can also talk maybe about sports. You can talk about clubs. You can talk about something that shows your level of competence in that school, that this is what you really want. You've did your research and you know what you want to do. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we have 10 questions, and I know I talk a lot, but I try to be brief. And then the 4th question is, why should we select you? I know all of a sudden you don't know why you should be selected, or they'll even intimidate you and say, Miss Naomi, this year we had 200 applications for this program and we just want to know, why should we select you? And then this here, ladies and gentlemen, you have to go all out. You're not blowing your trumpet, but mention everything, every skill, every unique skill that you have that will make you stand out. Talk about your experience. If you're going to social work or psychology, talk about the experience you had with community-based help, with community what. If you're talking about engineering, talk about the short courses, talk about the internship, talk about those skills that you possess that qualify you for that career or that qualify you for that program. You're not blowing your trumpet, you're simply stating what you have achieved over the years that qualifies you. Okay? Make sure you mention them. And then the 5th thing, this question, they may ask it, they may not ask it, but most of the time is what is your strength? What is your weakness? They can be asked at the same time or separately. If they ask you about your strength, they're going to ask you about your weakness. Oh, sorry. My camera just lost focus there. I don't know why. So when you get to your strength, you know yourself better than anyone. Mention that one thing that you're good at. And here's a tip: when you mention your strength, make sure that it's something that will add value to your studies, that will add value to them having you in their school. That one thing that will just make you so unique, so it, for example, the strength that I normally mention is that I am very organized. I'm good at planning things. Like heck, I knew I was gonna make this video today like 6 months ago. So if you can elaborate yourself, prove yourself on your strengths, be honest, be completely honest here, because if you're not honest, it's gonna show. And then your weakness. When it comes to your weakness, ladies and gentlemen, do not mention something that would have your interview panel like, no. Something that will make you seem like having you in the school, you would be like such a bad candidate. Like when you mention dealing with addiction or being lazy or not being punctual, don't mention such things, but rather mention a weakness that you know you can work on. For example, my strength is that I'm very organized, like I've mentioned, but my weakness also comes from the organization. Sometimes I tend to be so consumed in an activity. If I have an assignment, I'll work super hard on the assignment and forget to do other things like chores or socialize. Don't mention a weakness that will be like, no. Just mention something that it's not that bad. It's something that you can work on, something that you can improve, and yeah, at the same time, being honest. Be honest. Moving on. And then we have, who is your role model? I think this is question 7, 6? I'm not sure, but I'll write the numbers properly somewhere. Now, question 7. Who is your role model? It doesn't matter who you mention. What they're actually trying to see is the kind of person you are, the personality, your values, what you value in life. So when they ask you about your role model, make sure you mention something that at the same time has to do with your career or has to do with some values that are important to have in your career. All right, that like my role model, obviously growing up, I used to look up to my mother being a community healthcare nurse. I'll be like, oh my god, I wish I look at her helping people. I want to be that too. But for you, make sure you mention somebody that possesses the skills, the qualities that are important in your course that you're applying for or in your career. Do not just mention anyone, okay? And then question 8. What would you change about your past, yourself? What one thing or two things would you change about yourself? Now here, be completely honest. This type of questions, it's not really about what you say, but that more or less trying to assess your character, and this is why I say if you lie in your interview, such questions will obviously reveal such things. And for me, during my interview process for my master's, I had to be completely honest because I was applying for a psychology major, a master's in psychology, so I was being interviewed by psychologists. So if I lied, they would probably have knew it. Okay, so I had to be completely honest. So that's why I would also advise for you, be completely honest. What would you change? There's obviously one area of your life that you feel you want to improve. Make sure you mention that area. Why do you want to change it? What do you feel when you could have done different, could have, put you in a better position? What is that one thing? This could be anything, literally. It's just to assess your character, and there is no one right answer. Like, everybody is different and everybody will have that thing. But what you do not want to do is be like, nah, I don't think I'll change anything about my life, because that type of person doesn't show growth. It doesn't show that you're mature enough to notice when you've done wrong and how you can improve. And such people like that are usually narcissistic. They have narcissistic traits. So don't be that person. Everybody has one aspect in their life they would like to improve, so make sure you mention that. And then if you're applying this next question would apply if you're applying for your master's. I'm sorry, I don't know why my phone keeps getting out of focus. I'm sorry. But anyways, it's your research question. They're gonna ask you questions about, like, when you're applying for a master's course, they'll have that portion where you write a research proposal. Like, you give a topic, you give the problem statement, your aims, your hypothesis, so on and so forth. So they're most probably gonna ask you questions about that. They're gonna ask you questions about your aims, your problem statement. So make sure before you go into your interview, you have rehearsed everything, you know, every little detail about your topic. Why is it interesting? Why should you engage in it? Why should the school support you to engage in it? Stuff like that. And then last but not least, and then the program questions. These are questions that are unique to your specific field. If it's an engineering program that you are applying for, they'll most probably ask you engineering related questions. I don't know what engineers get asked, but in my case for psychology, they gave me a case scenario. They read out a case scenario for me and asked me what my thoughts were on that scenario. Again, this type of questions are just to assess your level of knowledge or competencies when it comes to content or when it comes to subject matter of what you're applying for. If it's engineering, they're just gonna see, and they're usually very simple, basic questions. Like I said, they're just trying to understand your level. If you understand the most basic components or basic knowledge of your field or of your profession. So that's the whole aim of those questions. If you're applying for psychology, something you love, something you're passionate about, obviously you'd know. Maybe they would even give you a scenario, for instance, psychology that is related to Piaget or that is related to Pavlov, you know, those basic theories in psychology or foundation theories. So that's why I named them program questions. And like I say, if it's a business course, obviously they'll ask you something along the lines of business just to check your competency or your level of knowledge. And then the last question, the last question, this is what I have tamed to be odd questions. What do I mean by odd questions? I'm talking about questions you wouldn't even expect to find in an interview. Let me give you an example of an odd question that I encountered. So my interview panel asked me, so we understand you are from Botswana. I was like, yes. So how's the climate in Botswana? It's very hot, it's very dry, but most of the time it's hot. Even the winters are not so severe. Okay. So while you're applying to this, to China, the region that you applied for, it's very much cold. You know, it's a different climate from where you'll be, different culture, different everything. So what would you do? What is it that you're going to do to make sure that you cope to your new environment? Did you expect to find such a question in your interview? Like, seriously, what would you do to cope with your environment? So yeah, you have to be creative and just be honest. And then in countries where English is not although your medium of study will be English, but if English is not the first language, the official language, they'll probably ask you, like during my Chinese interview, they asked me if I knew any Chinese, if I'd be able to interact with Chinese people. And I was like, just a few. And they're like, okay, can you say a few lines for us? Stuff like that. So yeah, be prepared. If English is not like the main language, they're probably gonna see if you would fit in with the not fit in as such, but be able to communicate. Something like that. Alright, so that was question number 10. I hope you found these questions to be very beneficial for you. I hope you will use them and I hope that they'll make a difference in your interview. Thank you if you got this far. My name is Naomi. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and please leave a comment down below if you have any questions for me. And I post scholarship tips, be it applications to schools, interview questions like this clip, application procedures, basically anything that has to do with applying for schools abroad or applying for scholarships or stuff like that, internships, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So be sure to subscribe and get my every other week videos where I upload such content to help you. I also upload now and then, not so much. I upload travel videos because I'm a travel enthusiast and I like seeing new places. And yeah, so please, thank you for joining me. I feel blessed to have you here. I hope you have a very good interview. Good luck with everything. You got this. You got this, baby. Trust in yourself. But that is all for today. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and see you soon. Bye.